Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Going to give people a couple minutes to join us here. The training lasts about an hour and a half, give or take, mostly depending on load times. We do record the trainings, so you can always come back later if you're not able to stay for the whole time. That also allows you to share the training with other staff members who may need to be system admins. Please feel free to make use of YouTube chat feature to ask a question about a feature as I'm going over it. And I'll try to make sure to address the questions as I see them. We do have other videos. You should actually look at the show notes. I have links to a couple of them. The big one being the Business SMS webinar series. Basically, if you want to be using your VirtualPBX account for texting purposes for your businesses, you want to look at that series because you do need to register that number or in the campaign, etc. And that series goes over the various things about using texting with businesses or as part of your business. And I believe our marketing just released a new video about integrating with CRM as well. Anyway, here you have our, on our screen here, our dash login page. This is at dash.virtualpbx.com. We need 3 pieces of information in order for you to be able to log in. The first is your username, which is your email address. This should be in all lowercase letters. Then we need your password. This is case sensitive. And then lastly, the account name. Right? So typically your organization name, business name, or your own name if you just signed up for yourself. Now, if you have problems logging in, down here at the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, is the Forgot Your Info link. You can click on that, flips it around. You still need your email address. Right? It should still be in all lowercase letters. And then down here, we need one of these 2 pieces of information. We don't need both, right? So again, either the account name or a phone number on the account. And this is one of your company phone numbers, right? Not like someone's cell phone number as a device. Then you click on the Reset Password button here at the bottom. This is going to send you an email with a link inside of it, right? You click on that link, it logs you into your account page where you can change your password. It then logs you out. If you try to navigate away from your user account page, the system will also log you out. But you'll be back here, so then you can enter in your new password. I think I just did that. Wrong. You also have the option to click on Remember Me. And then we'll click on Sign In. Now, I'm using a test account that I log into several times. So when I log in here, I'm taken right to my dashboard page. If it's your first time logging in, the system will instead take you to your user account page. You can always get back to your user account page at any time by clicking up your name at the top, just to the right of the center. So if I click on that, it's a huge pop-up. Right? So here I see my user account page, where again, the most common thing that's changed is your password. You can also change like your date and time settings, etc. Now, as an admin, over here on the left, I have access to the account level settings, right? So I could change who the technical contact is. I can also change the time zone for the entire account. You're not able to change your account name yourself. Right? It's not an editable field. However, if you do need to change the account name, you're going to want to email our billing team. That's billing@virtualpbx.com. They have to sync up your account name across several different things. Add-ons is new, and in the future, there'll be many options here. But this will allow you to add on new features to your Dash account without having to go through our services team. Generally speaking, there'll be a note if there's any kind of price change, or you can reach out to the services team to verify if there will be an increase to your bill by activating an add-on. Currently, the only add-on is the text forward feature, which is already enabled on this account. Over here on the left, billing portal. You click on this link that will take you to the billing portal so you can access things like your previous invoices or like changing your credit card information. Also, any admin here can click on cancel account and they can follow through this process and close out your account. This will close out the account by at the end of your your current billing cycle, excuse me. You definitely don't want to do this unless you've already ported out your phone numbers. You have to have active phone numbers on both sides of of the port process, right? So not something you want to do willy-nilly. Now, once you're done in this user account page area, click on the close box here towards the top right, and you'll be back here on the dashboard. Now, that first time logging in, you are going to have pop-ups coming up, the dash wizard, right? So on the user account page, it would tell you what certain things are. It would also tell you things here on the dashboard page. Pardon me. All right, so up here at the top, again, click on your name at any time to get that user account page. Most of us to the right of our name, we have a D&D link here for do not disturb. Right now, my D&D is active, which means I'm not taking calls. If I click on this, it will flip it and be mostly black now. Once it updates, as you see, that means now I'm taking calls. Now, if you assign a user into the call center, right? So if you're making use of the call center queues, this D&D toggle will disappear because those two features don't work well together. Little phone icon here. This opens up a new tab and takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. If you have added a web phone as a device on your user, you can log into that page using your dash login and use Chrome or Firefox from a computer to make and receive calls. Right? And, if you don't have added, or if you haven't added a web phone to your user, then you won't be able to log into it. The little chat bubble here, this opens up a new tab, takes you to virtualtext.app. It has its own login information. This only will let you log in or give you login information if you've added or enabled the virtual text feature to your user. But you would then use that to text to and from your customers. Little question mark icon here. This will open up the chat bubble chat window, excuse me, at the bottom right of your browser, so you can chat with a support team member. The three horizontal line icon is the menu icon. This gets you to other dash features. The vast majority of our time today will be up here in the top right, or top left, excuse me, the dashboard. Like 90% of our training. We'll cover these other topics, although some of them I'll have to refer you to links in the show notes. Little right here, arrow to the right icon here, excuse me, that logs you out of your dash account. Here in the center, you got your total users, right? So I have 9 users. These are people who make and receive calls. Bear in mind that the more users you have, most likely your bill will increase. And most of our plans are based on a per user basis. Total devices, I have 28 devices scattered among my users, and then a breakdown here. First up is cell phones. So you can add cell phone or landline numbers to your users or as devices on your account. So we can send calls to say your cell phone number, right? You can pick up, you can answer, you can talk to the other person. You're not going to be able to transfer that call to someone else on your account. Right? Basically, once we send a call out to a cell phone number or a landline number, that's it, right? We can't, no more transferring or anything like that. Soft phone, software application, uses your internet connection to make and receive a call. This bucket here includes both the VirtualPBX soft phone app and any third-party soft phone apps you might be using. Right, it's just a general, hey, all soft phones here. Then we got the web phone, so I've added, looks like 5 web phones to various users on my account. Again, uses that Chrome or Firefox on a computer. SIP phone, this is a piece of hardware, right? So SIP, so VoIP phones, right? General term, voice over internet protocol, right? Anything that uses your internet connection to make and receive a call. SIP is a protocol within VoIP. I don't know if it's the most common. To me, it is just because that's what we work with. But if you're shopping, you want to make sure any phone you're looking at is SIP compliant or SIP compatible, ideally out of the box without you having to do anything. But yeah, this is a piece of hardware. It has an Ethernet cable typically connected to your router. You pick it up, you can make and receive calls from it. Down here, I have unregistered devices. I have 2. That means I have disabled 2 of my devices on my dashboard. All right, total numbers. I have 15 total numbers on this account. Each account includes some number of phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. Typically, I think our current plans like include one main number and typically a local number per user, but check the pricing page just to verify. Most likely that means I'm over my allotment, which means I'm paying extra per phone number per month. Again, check our pricing pages to see what that would be for you. If you're on an older plan, you'd want to talk to our account services team, although they've been trying to reach out to people about that. Down here, I have a breakdown here of assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned numbers means I'm using it. All right, so someone can call those numbers, expect to speak to someone or leave a voicemail or join a conference or be sending a fax. Spare number counts towards my allotment of numbers. I'm not currently using it. Right? I'm opening a new store in a different area, and so I got a number for that area. I'm just not publishing it yet because I just haven't made all the marketing materials or whatnot. Or my colleague Bob retired. He had a phone number assigned to his user. So once I removed his user, his phone number that was on his user became a spare number. USDID, US toll-free, just the kinds of numbers they are, right? US toll-free is actually US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888 all the way down to 833. USDID just means a US number, right? So a number in San Jose, California, USDID, just as if you had one in Grapevine, Texas. You can have international phone numbers. If you're interested, you'd want to email our porting team. That's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. They'll verify if it's possible and let you know if there's any additional requirements, i.e. documentation. Next up, we have conference bridges, which I have 5. This means I've enabled the conference feature on 5 of my users. Right? So 5 of my staff moderate or host a conference. Up here towards the top right, I have my main number block. I have 3 numbers listed here. Right? So these are my general numbers, right? People call them, they're going to reach my main system, right? In terms of they're going to go to the same location on my system. They're going to have the same main greeting, right? And that means most likely they have the same menu options, depending on where I set them up. Conference number, you can have multiple conference room numbers if you want, but they're going to the same set of conference numbers or conference rooms, excuse me. Everyone dials this number to join a conference, right? So my staff members, customers, vendors, all call this number, then they'll be prompted to enter the conference room number and PIN number. The fax box number, you can have one main fax box number, and this is your inbound fax number. This also allows you to set up your fax box to allow for outbound faxing if you're so inclined. We have our company directories. There's 2 of them, a CSV and soft phone. CSV just downloads a spreadsheet file. It's going to have your staff members' names, their extension numbers, their primary devices. The soft phone, this is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. Right? So if you're using our soft phone app on a Windows or Mac PC, you would download this file and then upload it to your soft phone on your computer. This will allow you to see the status of the other VirtualPBX soft phones on your account. Right? So if that's the only device people are typically using, it's a way to know who's on a call and who's not. Right? Green means they're available, red means they're on a call. Right? Now, if you have staff members who have multiple kinds of devices, you're not going to be able to tell if they're on or using one of those other devices, right? So if like my colleague Mike is using his Yealing phone, I won't know, right? I can only see the status of his VirtualPBX soft phone. VirtualPBX Store, this opens up a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx.com, where you can order things like a VoIP phone. The account realm, every account has its own account realm. It's used for 3 things, or 2 things, really. The first is one of the 3 pieces of information to program or provision a third-party soft phone, right? So if you're using Xlite from Counterpath, you would need this piece of information along with 2 others in order to use that piece of software with your Dash account. The other thing it's used for is to send a fax out. So once you have your fax box set up, you can have it set up so that everyone at your company with the same email domain can send a fax out, even if they're not a user on your Dash account. And they just create an email like they normally do. In the to field, they put the plus sign, the number 1, the area code and phone number they're faxing to, little @ symbol, and then the account realm. And then they just need to attach a PDF or a TIFF file. Just 1 attachment per email. The system only looks at the to field, the from field, and the attachment. Right? So anything you type in the subject line or the body does not get transmitted to the other fax machine. Again, one attachment per email. Now over here on the left, where up the top it says dashboard, these are other core Dash features. We'll be touching on them shortly. But up here at the top, going across from where it says dashboard to the right, I have a caller ID icon here. If I click on that, it expands out to a large box. Now this pull down allows you to select any of your main numbers, right? So I have 3 I could select from, and whichever one you choose becomes your default number. So like for your VoIP phones, if they make an outbound call on this account, they're going to default to this 512 number because that's the one I've selected. Now, below that, this is an optional feature, the company caller ID name or CNAME. In this box here to the right, you can enter up to 15 characters. It does count spaces as part of that 15 that you want us to associate with this phone number. Right, so when you make an outbound call, we send the number and this name information. Down below, we have the company emergency information, or E911. It wants a North American address. For our Canadian customers, for postal code or zip code, that's where you put your postal code. And then where it says state, that is where you would put your 2-character province abbreviation. Then click on Save Changes. Now, if you entered information in the company caller ID name field, after you click on Save Changes, this information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support this feature. It takes them about 3 business days to update on their side, sometimes a little bit faster. Some things to be aware of about the CNAME feature. We can only control what we send out. What the other carrier gets or displays on the phones on their network, we can't control. Right? So we send it out, so when you make an outbound call, no matter from what kind of device, right, your call can route through several different carriers before it reaches its destination. If any one of those carriers doesn't support the CNAME feature, the CNAME information doesn't reach the endpoint at the person you're calling, right? Only the phone number would get through. That receiving carrier, right, the last carrier, they have final say about what shows up on what shows up on the screens of their phones on their network, right? Ideally, right, they see the phone number we send and the name information and they pass it through. The most common is they see the number and name and they only send the number through. They don't send the name at all, right? It just says the number. That's what the cell phone carriers default to, right? Then there's an in-between option where they see the number and the name, they disregard our name, but they look at the number in their own set of databases, which we may not have access to, and so then send the correct number, but then a potentially different name. So we can't control what that receiving carrier does. We can only control what we send out. And the big issue is with cell phone carriers. So like my cell phone carrier, if I want company information to show up on every call I get, I have to pay them $10 a month. I'm not willing to do that, and they're similar. It's between like $5 to $12, I think I've seen for most carriers. All right, hold music. So first thing, hold music on Dash. What this is referring to is after a call has come through your system and reached one of your staff members. They've picked up the call on a VoIP phone. They've talked to the customer, then they press hold. That's when this file will come into play. Now, you can upload your own music files. The system will play back .wav and .mp3 files up to 1 megabyte in size. Because of that size limit, I do recommend recording in mono. That way you have a longer duration file. A 1 megabyte MP3, for example, is about 5 minutes long. But you would then click on the browse button here to find a file on your computer, click the up arrow icon, and then save changes after it finishes uploading. And that becomes the default hold music for all your staff. Excuse me. Now, ours is part of main number. And in order to get your main number set up, you want to make sure you have users at the very least set up. So let's go over to users over here on the left. A person with the desk icon. All right, so on the user pages, you see all your staff members that are already here. The people with the blue suit icon, these are your system admins, right? So they can make all these changes we're talking about. The gray person icon, standard user. They have very limited access. Essentially, they can check their voicemails. They can enable call forwarding. If you assign them to the queues, they can get to the queues. That's basically it for the most part. Up here at the top is where you would add a new user, right next to the 9. And then you need to fill out the form, right? So first name, last name, just want some sort of text. The email address used for login, this is how the system defaults its communication with the user, right? So voicemail notification emails, password reset emails are all going to this email address that you put in here. You cannot reuse an email address for multiple staff people, right? Each one needs to be unique. Create a password for the user, and then set up the main extension number you want for them. Now the system's going to default to you to extension 1000, but you can enter in anything you want. All right, so I can say, hey, you're 8765. I do typically recommend 4-digit extensions just as that gives you more versatility and room for growth. And you can always set up menu options for 0 through 9 under your auto attendant. Now, by default, the system will create a voicemail box for this user automatically. This voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So for instance, if you create a user and you add a VoIP phone to them right away and it gets registered, that user can pick up their VoIP phone, dial *98, that logs them directly into the voicemail box that you also created for their user. At that point, the system, especially since it'll be their first time logging in, it's going to prompt them to create a voicemail box PIN number, ask them to record their name, which is what the system uses for their PBX directory, and then walk them through recording their voicemail greeting. Right? So then at that point, they're pretty much set up. Here's your option to include the user in the user directory. Just put a check mark if you want them in. You can always change this later. Then here we have send emails to an alternate address. So if you want those like password reset emails or voicemail notification emails to go to a different email address than the one you put in for the login information, right, for the user, you would click a check box here and then put in that different email address here. Right? If they're going to use their email address for everything, then there's no need to enable that. The last option here is send credentials to the user. I usually recommend putting a check mark here. So that way, once you click on create user, that user gets an email that says welcome them to Dash and gives them their Dash login information. If you need to add multiple, create user and add another. That basically just refreshes the box. Now, once a user is created, you can click on their name. Right, so you can change their name if necessary. Here's your option to change their login information, right? So their username or their password. You also have this link here to send them directly the password reset information. You can change their voicemail box PIN number. Just enter 4 digits and save changes. Here's your option to send to an alternate address. Here's the option to be in the user directory or not. Over here on the right, little person icon here, this pull down allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. Little clock icon here, this allows you to change the time zone for the user. That way their voicemail timestamps are in the correct time zone. Flag icon, this allows you to change the display language of the web pages for this user, English, French, German, or Russian. Ringing timeout defaults to 20 seconds. This is plenty of time to send a call to a landline or a VoIP phone. If you have a user that's only using a cell phone, we recommend changing this to at least 30 seconds. You might need to even bump it up more. Basically, as far as telecom works, right, when a call goes to a landline, right, goes to that telecom, they know exactly where that phone is, so they just pass it right through. Whereas when a call comes to cell phone number, it goes to the cell phone telecom, they have to find you first, right? They ping cell phone towers, find you, then they send that call through. That delay is why you would want a longer ring time for calls going to a cell phone. And if you, for users, you can add multiple extensions if you want them to. Users can have their own phone numbers if you want to. So click on this phone numbers box here. You have 2 options. Add from spare, which basically means using one of your numbers you're not currently using. This is also how you would reuse a number, right? You first unassign a number, puts it in spare, and then assign it to the new location. Or you can buy numbers, which means you're adding a brand new number to the account. So add from spare, when you click on it, it's going to show you your available numbers. And you can click on the number you want to use, click on add selected, and then click on save changes. Once I added save changes, or click on save changes, now it's actually here on the user. Until then, it's not. right? Unassign and save changes again, and now it's back to being a spare number. By numbers, you have options of local or toll-free. Toll-free is pretty easy. You just choose the toll-free prefix you want to use, and the system will search and see what's available in that toll-free prefix. Now, this list of numbers is technically dynamic, meaning you actually could be competing with someone else in real time. Most likely, it won't be an issue. The only time I've ever encountered a problem is someone clicked add. This doesn't reserve the number or anything, right? So they clicked add, and then they got pulled away for a meeting, right? They come back maybe half an hour later, they click on by numbers, they get an error because while they were in that meeting, someone actually completed the process of adding a number to their staff, right? But in general, you add the number, click on by numbers. You can add multiple numbers at the same time to the same location if you want to. And then if I click save changes, right? So now Dante has this toll-free number. All right. For buying local, you need to know the area code that you want to work with. You can always search for US area codes at this time. Any area code, including the toll-free prefixes, excuse me, you can get this message saying that there's nothing readily available. Right? It means that area code is exhausted. Now, for a local number, you'd probably want to use your favorite search engine and do a search for area code 310 overlay. That would tell you area code 424 is the overlay. All overlay area codes are 2 or more area codes that cover the same geographic area. Right? They have to do 10-digit dialing. I'm old enough to remember where I didn't have to do that. Brief window of time where I didn't have to do 10-digit dialing to call my friends. But beyond that, the process is the same. You find a number you like or multiple, and then you click on by numbers. And wait for the system to actually add them to your account. And then save changes. Now, some things to keep in mind. When a number is assigned to a user or to a group, it does not have hours of operation, right? So this means this number or these two phone numbers will ring to Dante 24/7. So something to be aware of. Now, since Dante only has a VoIP phone, that's probably not a big deal, right? But if you have users making use of cell phones, that could be an issue. You may have noticed over here, there's a little gear icon here to the right of each number. So here, first one is caller ID. You can set up the outbound caller ID, right, the CNAME information, and you can turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAME. So right, the person's name shows up on your staff members' phones. E911, each phone number can have its own E911 address. This then allows you to assign that phone number to specific VoIP phones for the purposes of E911 only, right? So that way, when they pick up the phone and dial 911, the correct address is sent to emergency services versus your company headquarters, right? For people who are working remotely. Prepend is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to enter text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones, right? So like a common one I use, actually, I think I have it on this one. Yeah, I'll go here and go to prepend. So when a call comes in on this phone number, the word direct shows up in front of the caller ID. So I know, oh, they called my number directly. All right, devices. You can add devices directly to a user. Actually, let's go to Dante since he has. So the first up is SIP phone. These are the manufacturers that support auto provisioning. Basically, makes it easier to add the phone to the account. Some of them, like Yealink, have a lot of models to work with. Others have about a dozen. Right. So choose the make and model of the phone you want to work with. You want to give it a name. I usually like if you're adding it to a user, that person's name, phone, right? Or the location, like warehouse phone, break room phone, whatever. MAC address, this is unique to each device, typically a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, if there's like a status area, it usually shows up there as well. You want to enter that information here and then click on Create Device. And then you would click on Save Changes. Now, after that, you want to click on the device name again here. Click Advanced, and then select the Miscellaneous. And where it says Allow Reprovision, you want to click this Unlock box here. This box will disappear, and then click on Save Changes. That tells the system, hey, this phone is about to provision for the first time, or again. Now, within our dashboard, you're basically done. However, you need to access that phone's web user interface, right? Web UI. That's typically done by getting the phone's IP address, entering that IP address into the address bar of your browser on a computer. That computer and that phone should be on the same network. That'll allow you to log into that phone's web user interface, and basically you need to give it a URL saying, hey, go here to get your config file. For the specifics of that, you're going to want to go to support.virtualpbx.com. That's our support pages. Do a search for auto provisioning. It's going to give you screenshots for these various manufacturers, so where to go and where to look for, as well as a proper syntax for that URL, and in some cases, some other settings just to verify. But after that, you basically tell the, hit update on the phone and then tell it to auto provision. Usually reboots a couple of times, and then it shows up as a green device on your dashboard. Next up, we have cell phone. And the same would apply for landlines, right? So you still need to give a name, right? And then here in the number, you put the plus sign, the number 1, then the area code and phone number. So if we click on this cell phone here, you see here I gave it a name, and then +1 area code and number, and then save changes. Now, if I go under advanced options, this is the default settings for every new cell phone or landline. So what happens? Call comes in, reaches my cell phone, right? My cell phone rings. When I pick up, I hear a message from the system. It says, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. Right? When I press 1, I'm telling the system, yes, I'm here, and yes, I want to take the call. It then connects the other call, that inbound call, to me, and I begin speaking to the person. Now, as I mentioned before, I can't transfer that person to anyone else on my account. Right? So I either have to take a message and have someone else call them back, or that customer has to call back in if they need to speak to someone else. Now, let's say, for instance, you have contracted with another company that runs an automated answering service for your after-hours calls, right? So they give you a phone number. Say, hey, just send your calls after hours to this phone number. We'll handle it. You would come into your Dash account and add that as either a cell phone or landline. But that automated answering service can't press 1 to accept the call, right? They're just trying to pick up and answer. So in that situation, you go over here under advanced, right? We're on options here still. And where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail, you want to put a check mark here. So now when we send a call to that phone number, there's no message about this is a forwarded call or requirement to press 1, right? When we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call, right? So then your automated answering service can take over. If this is your actual cell phone, what could happen with this setting checked like that is my cell phone voicemail could pick up, which means my inbound call ends up on my personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people want that, some people don't. Now, something else that can come up here is this one, keep original caller ID. So customer Mary calls into the system, reaches my cell phone. On my cell phone, I see customer Mary's phone number. I don't recognize it, right? I've been getting hammered with robo-dialers or telemarketers, whatever. So I let it go to voicemail. Maybe I'm able to reconnect with customer Mary, maybe I'm not. To help with that, I could uncheck this setting here. So now, when calls come into my cell phone, instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number, we go back to the dashboard. Under caller ID, this phone number that you selected here, that's what shows up on my cell phone. So hopefully, I would recognize my main, my business phone number. That's probably worthwhile for me to try to pick up and answer. All right, so it's a visual way to know, oh, this is a work call versus my sister calling me. All right. Next new device is soft phone. So whenever you add a soft phone or a web phone to the account, you get this warning message. It's essentially about wireless VoIP technology and E911, right? I.e., you might be moving around. So if you dial 911 from, say, your soft phone that's on your cell phone, the phone number that's associated with your cell phone might have your home address, whereas you're at the grocery store, right? So that's why they say, hey, you probably don't want to do that from the app while you're wandering around. But so basically, make sure you read that at least once. So here, after you close that message, you get this big box. This is defaulting you to what's called a third-party soft phone, meaning you're using someone else's application, right? Not the VirtualPBX application. So you would give it a name. You would copy the SIP username. If you click on the SIP password box, you would copy and paste that, and here's the realm. Those are the 3 pieces of information you would need to program that other soft phone. Now, if you want to use our app, down here below where it says view configuration, there's a toggle, and it says use third-party application, but you can click on that. Now it says use VirtualPBX application. So now you just need to give it a name, and then you click on create device, and then you click on save changes here on the user. Once you click on save changes, right, Dante would get an email saying, hey, your VirtualPBX soft phone is ready. Here's your login information. Here are your download links. Pardon me, I need to mute myself for a minute. Sorry about that. So with the VirtualPBX soft phone, at this point, your user has 2 sets of login information. One to log into the website, a separate, different set to log into their soft phone app. All right. And then the other one I'd want to cover here is the web phone. This is using that Chrome or Firefox on a computer. Click add web phone, click to confirm about the mobile, but this you just need to give a name, click on create device, and then click on save changes. Then Dante can go to webphone.virtualpbx.net, use his dash login, and log in that way to the web phone. So he's just using Chrome or Firefox on his computer. It does not work with, or it's not supported on the mobile versions of Chrome or Firefox. It's been kind of hit or miss when I've tested it. All right, next up we have user features. First up is caller ID number. So this is designed for users that you've assigned a phone number to. This then allows you to, when they make an outbound call, have their personal number show up, right, the number you assigned to them, instead of their main company number show up when they make an outbound call. So up here at the top, you click to enable, right? You select the number that's on the user, and then you would click on save changes. So now, whenever I make an outbound call from my VoIP phones, this 42 phone number shows up as my outbound caller ID instead of the 512 that I have on the main number. Voicemail box. Up here, this by default, it's going to be enabled, right? Because we added a voicemail box to the user when we created them. This is basically default settings. We attach the messages to the email notifications. Voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they're full, cannot accept any more. You have 3 ways to listen to a message, but 2 ways to manage, right? So one of the ways is to listen is this one here, right? We attach the message to the email. So you can listen to the message in the email. So in the email, you get the date, the time, phone numbers involved, MP3 attachment. Click on it, listen to the voicemail. That doesn't allow you to manage it though. From a VoIP phone, right, pick up dial *98, click send, logs you into your voicemail box. You can listen to your messages over the phone and delete them over the phone. Right? From any phone number, you can dial into your main number that rings to an auto attendant, right, a virtual receptionist. When you hear that main greeting play, hit *97. It'll ask you for the voicemail box number and the PIN number, and then you can listen to messages and delete them. And then the last place you can check is via the user portal. Now, this is only for your own voicemail box, but under the menu icon here, user portal, it defaults you right to your voicemail tab, so you can see the new messages, you can play them back. Up here is where you would change its status. One other thing is you have the option here to delete messages after that email is sent. Again, that's to avoid that 100 message limit. You might want to do this for any voicemail box that's extremely busy, so it doesn't get full. The downside is that means you can only ever check messages via email, right? The system won't store them, so you can't check via the phone or via the website. Follow me. This is for users with multiple devices. You click up here to enable. And this is where you as an admin determine what the ring order is for this user and their devices. Now, it defaults to everything at do not ring. So you have to choose which ones you want to use by unchecking them. You click and drag the little sliders here to give them a ring time. Now, up the top here, you've got timestamps. It defaults to 2 minutes, 120 seconds. You can change that to what you want, like 60. You can click and drag to change the order. So then I can click distribute. So now it always rings my web phone first and then my soft phone, right? If I click up here and click distribute again, now my soft phone is first. Now, let's say I'm about to go, right, this user's they're gonna be like a customer site, right? So now you're, okay, well, let's make use of your cell phone, but they're probably not gonna have access to their web phone, right? So you would have to come in here and do this and do something like that. So you can still use their soft phone on their cell phone, for instance, but then you can also double back to their actual cell phone number. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if this user is part of a ring group, calls from the group will ignore the follow me settings on the user, right? So for me, right, this is my name, my user. So calls come in to me from the group, all 3 of my devices ring. Versus when someone dials my extension directly or my phone number directly, it rings in the order that was set. Fax box, you can choose to have a user have their own fax box if you want them to. You just click up here to enable. And then you're given the option, select a spare number, buy a new number, or use a new extension, or add a new extension. I recommend using a phone number. This gives that person the most flexibility, meaning they can send and receive faxes from basically everybody. Right. If you select add a new extension number, one, you limit them to only being able to ever receive a fax, right? Because the system will try to use their extension number of the fax box as the outbound caller ID, which will cause it to fail. And you potentially limit who can send them a fax, right? Like electronic fax services, they may not allow the adding an extension number at the end of a phone number that they're faxing to. Conference bridge. Up here, you click to enable, and then you need to give them a conference room PIN number. They can change this on the user portal. And then the enable video conferencing, that's for only your Dash users, right? Anyone outside of your system calling into a conference room would not be able to make use of conferencing or video, excuse me. Call forwarding, you have off, on, or failover mode. Now, your staff members can turn call forwarding on their own via the user portal or directly from their VoIP phones. Call forwarding in general, designed with VoIP in mind, right? Because if you only have a VoIP phone, then you may want to forward to your cell phone if you're away from your desk, right? But if you added a cell phone as one of the devices on the user and it's active, then you don't need to make use of call forwarding, right? Because their cell phone is part of their call mix. But here, off, on, or failover mode, right? Failover mode is something you as an admin would have to set up. And this is if their VoIP phone goes offline, right, becomes unregistered, and a call comes into the user, the system will follow the failover mode settings, right? So basically, we'll send calls to this phone number that you designated. So that way, this user isn't missing a call just because they lost connectivity on their VoIP phone, right? So they can still help the customer. Now here in the destination, +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes of parentheses, you would click on Save Changes. Now, because there's a cell phone here, right, this user doesn't actually need to make use of call forwarding. Now, you would want to double check that under the Follow Me settings. Right, so if I go back to Follow Me and re-enable it, no, so if Follow Me is disabled, all other devices ring, right? So in that case, I don't need to change anything. Oh, all the devices are going to ring, including their cell phone number, right? But if Follow Me is enabled, then you want to make sure that their cell phone is part of that mix. Right? You would uncheck it and give it like a 30-second ring time. All right, customize call recording. By default, when you enable it, it looks like this, meaning nothing is actually being recorded. You need to tell the system what kind of calls you want recorded. Right? So inbound internal is coworker call, right? So Dante called me. Right? Inbound external, customer Mary called me. Probably want that recorded. Outbound internal is I called Dante back. Right? Outbound external is I called customer Mary. So we either see something like this or all four. Now, if you're recording every call and you have heavy call volume, you might want to look at setting up an AWS account and linking that to your Dash account. And if you're interested in that, you want to talk to our account services team because that's a feature that has to be enabled on the account. And that may require a plan change. But basically what that does is you link your Dash account to AWS and AWS handles the call storage. Your account does include some amount of data storage as part of your monthly plan price, but at heavy call volumes, for call recording especially, right, it's going to be more cost effective to go with them. Right now, if you're only, if you're getting like, I don't even know what the breakdown would be of when it's more cost effective. But let's say you're getting like 100 calls a week that you record, may not be necessary to go to AWS, right? We're talking, if you get 500 or more calls a week, then you're probably definitely looking at AWS. Music on hold, you can have your staff members have their own hold music, right? You would just click up here to enable. Either select the file that you've already added to the system or upload a .wav or .mp3 file, recorded in mono up to 1 megabyte size, click on Save Changes. So this is, for instance, if you want your salespeople to have one set of hold music, but then the rest of your staff has another, that's why you would do that, right? It's like a hold music talking about current promotions. Do not disturb. This is if the person is not available, you click to enable. Now calls to them go to voicemail. Hot desking, VoIP phone feature. This is for hybrid scheduling or shared office environment. You need to give them a hot desk ID. Like if you're making use of 4-digit extensions, just make it their extension number, right? So I can do like 1005. Up to you if you want to require a PIN number, and then you click on Save Changes. So I come into the office on Tuesday, right? I sit down on desk number 2. I pick up the VoIP phone there. I hit *11, right? Click send. The system will ask me for my hot desk ID. I enter that and then tells me that calls will now be sent to this device. Rest of my workday. Any call coming to my user is actually ringing at the phone I'm sitting at desk number 2. End of my day, I pick up that phone again. I hit *12 to turn off hot desking, and I go away. Right? I come back next time in the office. Angela's sitting at desk number 2. I say good morning. I sit down at desk number 5. Same thing. Pick up the phone, *11, hot desk ID, and now I'm getting calls there. All right. Next, I want to touch on groups. This is hunt groups or ring groups, departments. Right. So once you have users with devices, you can then create groups. So up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You need to give it a name and then an extension number. And then once you do that, you want to click and drag your staff members who are part of the group over here to the right, and then click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on the name. Right? So you can always change the name. Here you've got group call attempts. There's little arrows here to the right, so you can increase or decrease that. And this is how many times the system offers the inbound call to your staff members. Right, so right now, if I change this, I'm offering it to my staff members twice. You also have the option to delete a group, and if you've made any changes, click on Save Changes. Next to the right, we have our members box. I click on that. It shows who's assigned to the group and how I have their ringing set up. So this setup is what is referred to as blast ringing or ring all. Right? So call comes in, it rings all three of my staff members at the same time. Whoever answers first gets the call. Now, in an office where everyone's working together, pretty easy to tell who got the call, right? Like everyone's phone's ringing, and then I hear Taylor talking. I'm like, oh, okay, he got the call, no big deal. In a remote working situation, I may not know, right? So like Taylor and I pick up at the same time. One of us gets the call, the other one doesn't. The person who doesn't, so let's say Taylor gets a call, right? I hear dead air. I say, hello, thank you for calling, blah, 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 and then nothing. So if I'm not a system admin, I'd want to let my manager know, hey, I got a call, but there's dead air. Can we make sure someone got the call, right? The admin can then check like the call logs, or even, maybe talk to Taylor again. Hey, who got the call from this, this number? Now you can click distribute. So now you're ringing calls in this order every time, right? So call comes in, Taylor gets the call offered to him first, right? Hopefully he picks up. Now, if Taylor's already on a call from the group, right, and a second call comes in, he still gets offered the call. The system doesn't skip him. So after 40 seconds, then it gets offered to me. Right? Then I answer. Now, if a third call comes in, that third call has to wait 80 seconds before it's offered here to Dante. Now, if I'm kind of busy, right, I probably would want to do something more like this. So that way those second and third callers don't have to wait so long on hold. If you don't like this kind of setup, then you'd want to look at the call center, where when a call comes into a queue, it will skip anyone who's already on a call. Groups can have multiple extension numbers if you want them to. You can also add a phone number to them if you want to, right? So direct access number. Again, it's open 24/7. And then we have group features. First up is ring back. So call comes in, goes to your staff members' phones, it rings them. That ringing sound is then sent back to the inbound caller so they hear that it's ringing. If you don't want that to be sent back to the caller, you can enable this feature up here and then upload a media file, .wave.mp3, up to 1 megabyte, right? So that will play instead of that ringing sound. The system will not loop that media file for you, so you want to make sure that media file plays as long as your total ring time of the group. Right, so the default is 2 minutes, so make sure the media file is at least 2 minutes long. Next action, to me, the most important group feature, up here is where you click to enable. It's if no one answers the calls, where do you want to send the caller? Typically, it's a voicemail box, but this pull down, you can send it back to your main menu. You can send it to a call queue. You can send it to a specific phone, right? So like the bat phone, right? Or emergency phone. You can send it to a different group or specific user, like the manager. Or again, you can choose a voicemail box and then save changes. Allow call forwarding. If you enable it, that means your users can make use of call forwarding. Again, if they have cell phones as part of their device, probably not necessary. Caller ID prepend. This is, again, a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to enter either text or numbers as part of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. I recommend making use of one or the other, not both. I prefer text just because that way it's different from the number that shows up as the person's phone number. But again, that's only going to work for your VoIP phone users. All right, so now that we have users, devices, and groups, let's go over to main number here on the left. So up here at the top, you have your main company numbers. All right, you can always either add from spare or buy new, so you can add them directly as a new main number. You have the little gear icon, so you can update the caller ID, E911, or prepend for any number. Then we have the office hours strategy. So if you just signed up with us, you started off as 24-hour open office, but you can change it to custom office hours. Each day of the week that you're open, put a check mark in front of that day, and then set your open hours in 24-hour or military time. You also have the option down here to say, hey, we're closed for lunch at the same time every day that we're open. Put a check mark and then set your lunch hours in 24-hour or military time, and then click on Save Changes. Office holidays, put a check mark here if you're closed for holidays. Over here to the right, where it says add holiday, you click here. You have your option here for single day, date, range, or advanced. Right? Clicking any one of these will create a new row. Right? So it's single day, like I have here for Christmas Day, you give it a name. You choose the month and the date, save changes. Date range is like I have here for holiday, right? Gave it a name, I gave it a start date and an end date. Again, save changes. Now, there's no year indicator, so as a precaution, we recommend not having a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. But again, that's just a precaution. Advanced is like I have here for Memorial Day. You give it a name, you choose the month. This second pull down, you have first through fifth as well as last. And then you choose the day of the week and then save changes. If you need to remove a holiday, click on the little trash icon and then save changes. Then we have incoming call handling. So for my 3 main numbers, during my open hours, I'm having my calls go here to my virtual receptionist. My after hours, I have the calls instead being offered to a group, right? So I'm having people have a chance to answer the call first. If they're not able to pick up, then it goes to a virtual receptionist. And because it's a different time of day, different virtual receptionist settings. Right? And then during my holidays, I have calls on my main numbers instead are going to a voicemail box. So let's go into these a little bit more depth. So calls coming in, going to my virtual receptionist. That's a link, right? Opens up this big old box. On the left is my main menu options, right? And down here, I click on add route. This first pull down, you have 0 through 9, the star key, and the default action. The pull down here on the right is everything that's already added on your system. So users, groups, a specific device, voicemail box, etc. Right, you can scroll through and see what's available and select what you want it. So that way, whenever someone presses 0, for instance, they're going to my main voicemail box, right? They're leaving a message. Whereas when they press 1, they're going to Taylor. Press 2, they're going to that support group we're looking at. Right. Over here on the right, greetings. This is where you say thank you for calling. But you also want to give your customer directions, right? What should they press to get to where? Text to speech, you can type in a greeting that you want the system to read back to the inbound caller to computerize your robotic voice. It's limited to 250 characters, not words. It does not count spaces as part of those characters, fortunately. So it gives you a little wiggle room, but in that regard, it's somewhat limited. The system also doesn't allow you to name this file. It names it for you. So in this case, it'd be my main open hours menu TTS, right? If I made a text to speech greeting for after hours, it'd be my main after hours menu TTS. Right? Any change I make to this would create a new file. So then I would have multiple files called main open hours menu TTS. So if you make use of text-to-speech greeting, that's fine. That's great for if you're just starting out, you're not used to PBX systems, etc. But once you create one, right, you click update, save changes. Over here on the left under greetings, find that main open hours menu TTS file. Right, click on the edit, the wrench icon, change the name, right? Like main greeting 1. So that way you know which one it was, right? Because from any pull down, you're not gonna be able to recognize which one is which just by the title. All right, next you can upload your own file, .wave.mp3, up to 1 megabyte. Click choose file to find the file on your computer, and then update, save, and save changes. Choose from existing recording, right? So main open hours menu TTS. This pull down will show every media file on the account. Hold music files, voicemail greetings, main greetings, that all show up. That's why you want to use names that you can recognize quickly. You can record a greeting over the phone. Now, by default, it says pick up a phone registered to the account. That means pick up a VoIP phone. Right, that's a security feature, right? The system knows, hey, a VoIP phone is registered, so it knows it's part of the account. If you don't want to do that for whatever reasons, then under settings, where it says allow outside recording, you want to turn that on. Save changes. So now you can call them from any phone, right? When you hear your greeting pick up, you can enter this PIN number. This PIN number is specific to this time of day, right? So my system setting is open Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. If I called in today at 6 p.m., right, so after 5 p.m., and I entered this PIN number, I would get an invalid entry message. because it's not a valid entry. I would need my after hours PIN number to change my after hours greeting. Right? So I can only change my open greeting during my open hours over the phone. Right? I can always upload a file, for instance. But then once you enter the PIN number, the system recognizes it and then we'll walk you through recording it over the phone. Now, over the phone, you can't choose the file name. And by default, for new accounts, we have a default greeting in place. So you'll overwrite that greeting, but the file name will stay the same. I only bring that up just because during holiday time, sometimes people get in a rush and sometimes record over their normal greeting for the holiday greeting. Now, once you have a greeting in place, especially if it's something that you're going to use that you use regularly, I recommend going back to that greetings tab and downloading it so that way you have a file of it locally, so that way you can always send it back up if you need to. Professional recording services, when you click order, this will open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings. And they have professional voice actors and actresses to choose from. They bill you directly, typically via credit card, and then they email you the file when it's complete. So then you would come back up here to upload your own file. All right, settings. Number of retries on missed dials, how many times that inbound caller can make a mistake. They automatically get one attempt. Right? So anything you enter into this box here is in addition to that one that's built in. So this right now, since I have a setting of 2 here, that means my inbound caller has 3 attempts to get a right menu option or extension number. Dialing timeout is how much time the system listens for an additional button press, right? So the caller calls in and they press 7. The system's going to wait for 5 seconds to make sure that was the only number they intended to enter, right? I.e., they're looking at the extension number like at 743, right? Then they can enter those in time. We already covered allow outside recording. Now, allow dialing extensions by default, this is on. And that just means if the inbound caller enters a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call to that person or that extension. If I turn this off, that means my inbound caller can only press these menu options. If they enter an extension number, even if it's correct, the system will say that's an invalid entry. Lastly, down here, suppress the playing of the invalid entry message. So if you don't want the system to say, we did not recognize your entry, right, you click this on and that turns off that message. Kind of counterintuitive there. Any changes you make to your main menu, your setting, or your greetings, or your settings, you want to click save here and then save changes here. You're clicking save twice. All right, so for my after hours option, I've selected what we refer to as the live operator answer option. This first pull down allows you to select users, groups, devices, etc. Right? Basically, you're giving someone or several people a chance to answer the call first. Right? So now if my support group isn't able to answer, they instead get sent to my after hours virtual receptionist. Still a link. So I have my menu options here. I can likely have a different greeting and potentially different settings. And again, for that record over the phone, I have a different PIN number here. For my holidays, I have this third option here where this is a pull down. So this first pull down, I can select going to a user, a group, a media file, a telephone, whatever, right? Offers it to them first. And then it goes to the voicemail box I designated. In this case, at the very bottom is a skip to voicemail. We're basically saying, hey, during the holidays, don't bother trying to ring anything or play back anything. Just send it straight to this voicemail box I selected. So that way the caller can leave a message. All right, main conference number. You can have multiple conference room numbers if you want, right? So you can add from spare or buy new. They're all going to the same set of conference rooms. You can edit the greeting or having a customized greeting, but it's still text-to-speech. Even if you leave this disabled, the system says welcome to the conference and prompts the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and the PIN number. Main fax box, you can only have the one main fax box number. But once it's here, you can click edit fax box. Inbound notification email address. This is designed to put in an email address, right? And basically anytime a fax comes in, this person gets an email saying, hey, you have a new fax. Here's the date, the time, phone numbers involved. Here's a PDF attachment. Now, if someone dials my fax box number, here's the fax tones and then hangs up. I think it's, is it Rose? Yeah. It gets an email saying, hey, you had a failed inbound fax attempt. Now, in the body of that message, you have the date, the time, and the phone numbers. You might have the caller ID where it says wireless number. That's a dead giveaway that that was a misdial. Now, if it's a number you're expecting a fax from, then you want to reach out to those other people saying, hey, it didn't come through, so they can try to resend. Email permissions. This is for setting up your outbound fax permissions, designed to put your company's email domain in the box to the right. And anyone who's got an email that ends in that domain can send a fax out on the account, even if they're not a user on the account. Right? They just need the account realm and then attach a PIF or the proper format for the to field, and then attach a PDF or TIFF file. Right, auto attendance is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create additional auto attendants. The most common use cases we see are for submenuing, one for English, two for Spanish. You would create an English and then Spanish auto attendant here with a greeting in the appropriate language, and then menu options going to the people who speak the appropriate language. Or the other use case we see is someone who has multiple small businesses, right? So each business has its own phone numbers, its own main greeting, but the same staff people answer calls for these multiple businesses. Up here at the top, you click on Add Attendant. You give it a name, you give it an extension number, you click on Create Attendant. Now, once an attendant is created, you can click on the name. It defaults to being unavailable in main menu, meaning it's a standalone attendant. If you wanted to make a submenu option, then you click on that, and now it says it's available in main menu. Then you click on Save Changes, or if you no longer need the attendant, click on Delete Attendant. Phone number box, right? Add number or buy from spare. Same process as before, adds it directly here. You have the little gear icon so you can update the E911, prepend, etc. Extension box, you can add additional extension numbers for an auto attendant. Now, the extension number for the auto attendant is probably what your staff would use to try to send people to the right place, not something your customers would ever necessarily know. Then you got the little wrench icon here under settings. You see here, I have open hours, after hours, and holidays, right? This matches what we set up under the main number. But your routing option is always to the virtual receptionist. So you would add a greeting, you'd have your whatever routes you need, right? You click add to add more, and you can adjust the settings. So if you don't see this auto attendance as an option on your account and you're interested in this, you would want to speak to our account services team. Devices shows all your devices on the account. Red means it's unregistered. So for things like a soft phone or web phone, means they're not logged in. Black means we've turned it off over here under the enable section, right? Green means we can send calls to it, which is what you would always see on a cell phone, but also here on this probably a soft phone or a web phone. Now, the little wrench icon here to the far right, actually, that's a web phone. I don't want to use that one. All right, so like for this is a physical VoIP phone, but if I click on the little wrench icon under advanced audio for physical devices, under the audio codecs, you want G711A or G711U. Right? If you added a soft phone, you might see Opus, and that's great for the VirtualPBX soft phone, but anything else you typically want G711A or G711U. Yeah, I didn't want to do that. Emergency caller ID, right? This is where you can select a specific phone number to have the correct address for a person for E911 purposes only. You can also set up external caller ID to have a specific phone number always associated with a specific device. Up here, you can add devices directly here. Now this doesn't, you can't assign a device here to a user, so you're just adding an extra device. The main thing I want to point out is when you add a soft phone here, you don't have the option to change it into a VirtualPBX application, right? So if you're adding a soft phone on the device page, you're adding a third-party soft phone only. All right, greetings. Shows all your media files on the account. Right, you've got the name. Source, TTS, is text to speech. Upload means you uploaded the file. Recording means it was recorded over the phone. You have this option here under the play icon, right? So you can play it directly in your browser to listen to the file, make sure it's still legitimate. If for some reason it doesn't play back, under the download column, you can download the file and listen to it directly on your device. And then the wrench icon here, this is where you would change the name or remove the file completely because it's no longer needed. Up here at the top, you can add or upload new greetings, but you're not assigning it anywhere. It just becomes available in the pull downs. Numbers tab takes you directly to your numbers in use, so you see where they're assigned to. You cannot unassign numbers here, but you do have the little gear icon, right? So you can update the E911, caller ID, a prepend for any phone number. On the spare numbers tab, these are the numbers you're not currently using. So if you want to remove a number from your account, right? Like, hey, we're not using it ever, and I don't feel like paying for an extra phone number, then you would come here, find the number you're not using, right? When you click on the check mark in front of it, then this option to delete showed up. You just confirm the deletion, and now the number is no longer on my account. A port starts the porting process, and that just means you're moving a phone number from one carrier to another, right? So from, say, Comcast to VirtualPBX, do no port request, right? You need to give it a name, choose local or toll-free, choose next. Now the system wants you to upload a PDF copy of your most recent bill from the current carrier that has the number. There's a form that wants you to fill out, right? That, like the company name, the address, that should all match what your current carrier has on file. It's going to ask you for a BTN, which is billing telephone number. If you're only porting one phone number, you can use that same phone number as the BTN. If you have multiple, then you're going to want to double check with your current carrier. Some carriers require a PIN number to port out. Typically, we see this with the mobile carriers especially. That's a security feature. Basically, if you port out a cell phone number to us, the cell phone device that it's actually associated with will stop working because it no longer has a number. All right, so that's why it's a security feature for the cell phone providers. Some VoIP providers also require a PIN to port out, and some Canadian carriers, no matter if they're VoIP or landline or cell phone. Porting a number takes time. It's not instantaneous. Toll-free numbers basically take about a week. The local numbers, it can vary, but it averages about 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes it's faster. When you submit through the portal or the dashboard here, you'll get an automated email saying, hey, you submitted it. You should get a second email from our porting team within the next business day saying, hey, yes, we did get your port request and we're processing it. In terms of the port process, right, the LOA that you submit and you send in to us, which would be one of the steps in that portal, it does need it to be signed, right? Printing your name twice or like typing in your name twice, we're gonna email you saying, hey, we need a signed version. Anytime we've tried to submit with a typed or printed name in both fields in the LOA, it gets rejected. And the losing carrier doesn't have to reject right away. They can hold on to it for a few days before they respond. All right, so not having it signed is just a way of having a built-in delay. In terms of getting a rejected notice, we double-check to make sure there wasn't a typo on our side anywhere along the path. If we have alternate information to work with, i.e. like 2 different addresses, we will try the other address to see if that will go through. Once we've exhausted our options, then we reach out to you saying, hey, we're getting a rejection on these numbers for this reason, or these reasons if we have multiple. Which means basically at that point, you need to reach out to the current carrier and find out what is the correct information in order to port the number to us, or port the number out. All right, voicemail boxes shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. The ones that have an entry here under user, well, they're user voicemail boxes, right? Created at the same time the user was. But up here at the top, you can create a new voicemail box. Yeah, you need to give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number. And then click on create voicemail box. Now, one thing to know is that the voicemail box number is not the same as an extension number, right? So someone could not call in and enter 3 here and get to this voicemail box, right? They would hit, if there's even if there's no menu option 3 on my virtual receptionist or auto attendants, it would still not come to this unless I set it up onto the virtual receptionist as a menu option. Now, after a voicemail box is created over here under advanced, you have creating media. The media file is where you want something uploaded or added, right? You can upload a file, you can call in and record it over the phone, right? You just need the voicemail box number and the PIN number, right? Or select a file or upload a .wav.mp3 file. Now, the temporary file, this is that vacation or out of office message. So if you have something selected in media and in temporary at the same time, only the temporary file plays. The media file will not play again until you set temporary back to none. All right. Next up, we have recipients. So your user voicemail boxes have a built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. Any voicemail box you create on this page, you'd want to click down here and click add and enter in the email address. Now you can do this on your user voicemail boxes as well. So for instance, that way a copy of voicemails gets sent to like their manager, for example, or if you have a group of people who are just, hey, you keep track of all the voicemails for whatever reasons. And then finally, we have the options. So if you have a media file in place and recipients in place, then you can click on already set up. Put a check mark in front of the box, save changes. Main things people double check are you deleting after the notification is sent or not? But also make sure that you have the attached messages to email enabled if you're doing that delete. Text forward, this is an add-on. This allows you to have text that come into a particular phone number be sent out, forwarded on to either a phone number, or forwarded to either an email address or a webhook. So webhook would require that you have webhooks enabled on the account. So you might have to talk to our account services team. Excuse me. Up here, you click on add number, choose a phone number on the account, and choose either an email address or enter an email address or a webhook. You're not doing both, one or the other. Right? Then you click on create text forward. So now when anyone texts any of these phone numbers, right, these email addresses get an email saying, hey, you have a text and here's the information in that text. Right? So it's a way to receive texts, but you're not having back and forth. Call logs just shows your call history on the account. A green arrow to the right is a call coming into the system. Right? Yellow arrow to the left is an outbound call. So you can always download these files. It's a CSV file. So if you're good with spreadsheets, you'll get more information out of this. You have this week, you have this month where you'll have more. It's a very long call. So here you see this call had several legs, right? So this first one's the inbound side, right? Call coming into the system. These other legs are going out to these other devices. So you can see what's going on. You typically want to see normal clearing. That lets you know the call ended normally. Little fire extinguisher icon here. This will create an email for you, pre-addressed to support@virtualpbx.com with the technical details. Please type in the context. We may not always know from the technical details what or why you're sending a call in. Like if there's an audio issue, we're not going to be able to see that from the technical details. Custom will let you go back further in time. Right, you can set your date range to go further back. All right, you can see again, call came in, went to this device. You can download these as again as CSV files. The system will let you go back up to 12 months. After that, you would need to, or further back than that, you would need to reach out to our support team. Our engineers can go back up to a total of 18 months. After that, the data is no longer available. So if you need your call log information for some sort of compliance, I would recommend you download this every month. That way you don't have to worry about it. Feature codes, I've talked about a couple of these, but these are ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phone. This is obviously a page here, but also in our support pages. Also in the support pages, you can do a search for the phone commands cheat sheet, which will have the actual feature code, but also the context help. So that's the dashboard. Next up, we have blacklists. This is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system. So you click Edit Blacklist over here on the far right, and you click Add to create a new list. Otherwise, you can choose an existing list if you already have one. Give it a name, and then choose, are you blocking anonymous calls or not? So anonymous call means that a call is coming in, it's not presenting proper caller ID. If you turn it on, that means they're not getting through, right? If you leave it off, which is the default, that means those anonymous calls get through, right? So they can ring to your staff members. Beyond that, you click Add Number down here, +1 area code and number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Keep clicking Add until you're done adding numbers. Once you are done, click on Save Here. Then go back to Settings. Make sure your list is on the right-hand side under Selected, so you might have to click and drag a list over, right? And then click Update. Even if you don't have to click and drag to move a list over, make sure you click Update here. Now, one thing to keep in mind is this call on the blacklist, right? They still reach your system initially. Like, they'll show up in your call log, but they'll be rejected instantly. So that way, no phone or device on your account is actually wrong. Call recording it will either open a new tab and take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com, which is your dash login to log in, so you can view your call recordings there. Or if you already have your account set up with AWS, it will take you to your AWS storage, and you can filter and see your inbound or outbound calls. You can play them back. You can download them. If you actually want to remove the calls from your AWS, you have to log into AWS directly. You can't do it from here, unfortunately. Monitor plan-specific feature. This allows you to see your staff and their status, right? Whether they're on a call or not. It doesn't matter what phone they're on. You can go by the user or by the device. You can go all, who's available or who's busy. Over here on the right, active inbound calls. Each active inbound call would have a little blue box and showing who they're speaking to. Any parked calls would also show up here with their phone number and their parking spot number. Again, this is a plan-specific feature in case I didn't say that before. Reports, this opens a new tab, takes you to reports.virtualpbx.com, has its own login. This allows you to create your own reports, like more advanced than the call logs. If you go into show notes, there's the advanced reporting demo. Take a look at that. If it's something you're interested in, you'd want to talk to our account services team. Voicemails takes you to your voicemail box manager. So as an admin, you can get to any voicemail box on the account. So then you can see the messages they have. If you click on the check mark in front of it, you can either move it to a different voicemail box, right? Or change its status, i.e. if you have a voicemail box that's full, you can start removing messages. You can play it back. You can download the messages. Integration AWS, again, this needs to be enabled on the account, but this is how you would link your Dash account to your AWS. If you click on the settings here, basically all this information here, you have to get from AWS. Call center, this opens a new tab, takes you to callcenter.virtualpbx.com. You log in using your Dash information. Basically, you can see the call queues. You can log into if you're a member of the queue, you can log into the queues. You can mark yourself away, log out of the queues. You can select your queue device. Managers can eavesdrop in on a call, right? They can whisper to the agent or barge in. If you go in the show notes, you want to look at the ACD Queues Pro demo. Shows you some of the things that can be done with queues. You also have advanced routing options, right? And so it's like for groups, right? So groups and queues are related, right? Queues are just an advanced version of groups, but you have more advanced routing options. Like you can do most idle, right? So whoever's been waiting the longest for call gets the next call that comes in, right? Round robin will equalize out over time, things like that. It'll also, if the first agent is on a call, the system doesn't try to offer a second call to that agent. It goes to the next available person. Dynamic caller ID. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phones. We'll go down here to this first one here. So you give a name, you choose a phone number that's on your account. And then in this case, I said, hey, whenever my staff members dial a 702 phone number, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to the 702 number on the account. Now, alternatively, I can create this rule here, and I can select, oh, I don't have a 408 in use. All right. So anyway, I select this number, and my staff members need to enter star 951. And then they enter the area code and phone number they're reaching out to. When they do that, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 424 phone number I just selected. Right? The idea being is that you're trying to present the call as a local call to the people you're calling. Faxes, this goes to your fax manager, so you can get to any fax box on the account, whether it's the main one or your staff members. It defaults you to the outbound fax tab, so you can see what's going on with your outbound faxes. You can see the date, the time, phone numbers involved. You can download it. I'm sorry, this is the inbound faxes, excuse me. So you can see where they came in. The outbound fax tab. So here you see a success and a failure. If you hover over the failure, it tells you why. Basically, timeout waiting for initial connection. So it's a valid phone number, but we didn't get a fax tone back when it picked up. That's basically what that is saying. Right, you can download the file, etc. So basically, if you see a failure on the outbound fax tab, that means we had a problem with the other phone number, right? So we processed the request, we tried to make a call out, then the problem occurred. The email to fax log tab, when you see something here, that means we had a problem with the request. You see the email addresses involved, so you make sure they're the proper format. Click on the little eyeball icon here, and you see no valid attachment. So this could be there was no attachment at all, right? Or they sent something other than a PDF or a TIFF. Number manager, this takes you back to your spare number page. And webhooks. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to link Dash to other software. If you're interested, you would check our introduction to Zapier webinar in the show notes. There's also, you can go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we've done to link Dash to other software. You should actually talk to our salespeople. They're the ones who actually have the more information on this to get that enabled. And then lastly, we have the user portal. So every user on your account has access to their own user portal. It defaults you to your voicemail tab. So you can listen to your messages, you can download them, you can change the status. Call history will show you your call history that you have. So you can see who you've made call tos or gotten calls from. The fax tab here only works for users that have their own fax box. The contacts list, this is everything within your Dash account, right? So other staff members, auto attendance groups, etc. So you can transfer calls. It's not something your staff can add to. Conference tab, only usable for staff who you've enabled the conference bridge feature on. Over here on the right, this is where they would adjust their PIN numbers for themselves and for anyone joining their conference. The option to join muted or deafened, and do people play entry and exit tones. While in a conference, if they're on this page, the plus icon, they can invite other Dash users to their conference. They can lock the conference so other people cannot join, mute everybody, unmute everybody, end the conference call for everybody. Also, while in a conference, each participant and moderator has their own little box. So you can mute a specific person or even kick out a specific person. And then the settings and devices tab. Right here is where your staff members can enable call forwarding themselves. They just click on the box, +1 area code and phone number, and then click save. So now I'm forwarding calls to this phone number. And then when I'm done, I would uncheck it and click save again. And that is everything. So I haven't seen any questions, so I'll go ahead and end the stream. We'll be back again next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Again, we do record these, so you can get the link and come back at any time to review things or send it to other staff members. And again, you can also go to support.virtualpbx.com to view any of our support guides. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.